Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a card using Lawn Fawn's Cozy Cats, Perfectly Wicked, Meow You Doin', Window Scene Winter, and the Porcupine For You add-on. So I've stamped those images on Catherine Pooler Favorite White cardstock with Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink, and I'll be coloring with my Copic markers. I am going to start with my two cats, and I'm going to use some warm grays for them. I'm using W00, W1, and W3 for their bodies. Starting with that W3, I'm going to lay in a little bit of shadow on the top of their head and the tips of their ears, along their back and the back of their legs and their tail. And I'm going to blend that out with the W1. I'm sticking pretty close to the outside edge where the lines are drawn because I want these cats to be very, very pale gray tiger kitties. So I am just trying to keep that color confined to the outside edges to have that bit of definition there. And then I'll come in with that W00 and pull that color in even further, but I am going to leave some of the plain white cardstock showing for an extra highlight. I'll give that about 30 seconds to a minute to dry, and then I'm going to come in and add a few little details. I'm using the W5 to add some little tiger stripes on the top of their heads, all along their tails and their backs. So I'm just adding in these fine little lines with that W5. And then I'm going to go over them with the W3 to soften them and elongate them a little bit more. Just make them kind of fade into the rest of their fur tone. If you're interested in different ways to color kitties, I do have a video on 12 ways to color cats. So you can definitely check that out in my Ways to Color Critters playlist. And then I'm going to take the W5, W3, and W1 and use that for my little toy mouse. Next, I wanted to bring in a salmon red, and so I went with R12, R14, and R17. I'm going to use the R14 to color in that cactus blossom. It's super tiny, so just the one shade. And then I will also use these for my two throw pillows. That's actually the same image. I just stamped it slightly different so that it looks like one will be on the left and one is on the right. I started with my shading down in the bottom outer corner with the R17, blended out with the R14, and then I'll use that R12 on the upper inner corner. I'm also going to use these shades to color in a few of my books. So I'm going to pick a few here and there in these stacks and the rows to have that nice little pop of this orangey red shade. I'll add some to the main part of the book and some to the details. Blending out with the R14, and on that skinnier book I just used the darkest two shades, but on the other two I used all three. Then I'll switch to a lighter kind of peachy pink combo. I'm using R00, R01, and R02. And again, I'm just going to choose a couple of these books to add that color to. And I'm also going to do the little pot for my cactus. I think it kind of looks a little bit like a pale terracotta, so I thought that that would work well for that. I will do the ball of yarn with this combo as well, putting that darkest color down toward the bottom and blending up toward the top with the lighter two shades. I'm going to color in the little ears of my toy mouse, and I will color in the noses and the rosy cheeks of my kitties. I'll use all three shades for that, starting with the darkest and then just blending out around the edges with the other two shades to soften that into their fur. And then I did decide to also color in the mug with this combo. I thought that that shade looked really nice up against the kind of warm gray of the kitty. Next, I'm going to bring in green. I'm using G40, G43, and G46. I'm going to color in my cactus. And again, I will do a few of the books in this combo, just picking and choosing little areas to have those pops of color. I wanted a very specific color combo for this card. I just had a vision in mind that I wanted to stick to. And so I just am going to use these colors in different ways so that they kind of tie the whole scene together. So for all of those, I'm starting with the G46, blending out with the G43, and then using that G40 for a nice highlight. And then I'm going to come in with some blue. I'm going to use kind of a dusty blue. I'm using B91, B93, and B95, and I will do some more books. I had only left myself a couple of areas to color in with the blue because I had originally planned on coloring the couch blue, and so I thought we were going to have like a large area with that combo, and so I only wanted like little accents to accentuate it. But I ended up deciding to go in a different direction for the couch. So I'm just going to continue adding in some little details on these books with the blue and trying to bring in that combo as much as possible with the images that remain. And then rather than introducing another shade, I decided to go back to that lighter kind of peachy pink combo and finish off the little details on my books with that. These are the 4 shades that I had in mind when I came up with this card concept. I wanted it to be kind of like a salmon, a peachy pink, a green, and a blue, and then just a couple neutrals to balance it all out. So one of the neutrals that I had already planned to bring in for like my book pages is kind of a creamy tone, but I ended up deciding to use that for the couch as well, just to give the eye a little bit of rest with all of the other pops of color on the card. So I pulled out E40, E41, and E42, and I am shading that couch with the E42 for my shadows, and then I'm going to blend that out with the E41. I'm placing deeper shadows in the area where I think that the light wouldn't hit it very well, and then saving, especially like the rounded parts of the couch for a nice highlight. So then I'll come in with the E40 and I'm going to finish off the sides and the cushion, but the back I'm actually going to leave a little bit of white space for an extra highlight. I'll also use those shades for the pages of the one book that you can see them on. And then I will darken up this combo just slightly. I'm going to keep that E42, but add in E43 and E44. And I'm going to do the legs of my couch and also the shelf with these shades. So I'm starting with the E44, blending out with the E43, and then using just a little bit of that E42 for a highlight. And my coloring is done, so I will now trim all of these images out with their matching dies. Next, I'm going to work on my sentiment, so I'm going to pop a piece of white cardstock into my MISTI, and I'm going to stamp in Peachy Keen ink, and I'm using a sentiment from the Cozy Cats stamp set. It says, "Have a cozy day." I'm going to stamp that out twice to make sure it's nice and bold and legible, and then I'll set that aside, and I'll pop my card base in my MISTI. I'm using Lawn Fawn apricot cardstock, and I'm going to stamp in the same Peachy Keen ink, and I'm using a cat and a book from Perfectly Wicked, and then the tiny sentiment is from Cozy Cats. Then I'm going to bring in some pattern paper from the All the Sparkles 6x6 pad. I'm going to use the white piece that has the gold stars on it and also the blue tone-on-tone stripe. So I'm going to trim these down, and then I'll also bring in a piece of light brown wood grain cardstock for the floor. And I've got a thin piece of white cardstock for the baseboard. So I'm going to start by gluing down this white with the gold stars onto my card base. I trimmed that down with the largest of the large sticked rectangle stackables, so it fits the entire card front. The rest of the pattern paper and wood grain cardstock I trimmed down with the largest of the small stitch rectangle stackables, so it's just slightly smaller. And I'm going to glue on that white piece for the baseboard, and then I'll trim off the excess with my Cutter Bee Teflon coated scissors. Then I'm going to add another piece of white cardstock behind that just to give it a bit more stability. It felt a little bit flimsy, and I do want to pop this up with some foam tape to add some dimension to my card. So I'll just peel off the release papers, and then I'm going to line that up in the center of the white pattern paper and pop that down into place. And then I can bring in my images. First, I'm going to adhere my sentiment, which I trimmed down with the second largest size of the Everyday Sentiment banners. And I'm going to glue that down toward the bottom of the scene. That way I know how to space everything else above it. Next, I'll take the couch, and that is going to go just below the white baseboards. So I'll glue that into place and just make sure it's nice and secure on there. Then I'll take the shelf that needs to go above that and add some liquid glue to the back of that with that super fine nozzle of that bottle. And then I'll just use the stripes on that pattern paper to make sure I have that on there straight. And then I'm going to start adding the elements to that bookshelf. So I've got a stack of books that I'm going to place toward the left-hand side there. And then I'm going to take the little kitty that has his tail wrapped around the mug, and that is going to go up on the shelf to the right of the stack of books. Such a cute little kitty. I love him so much. And then I have that tiny little potted cactus, which I am going to add on the very left of that bookshelf. I always have plants on my bookshelves at home, so it just seemed fitting. Have a little bit of greenery there, especially a cactus because I have so many of them. And then I'm going to take my two throw pillows and I'll add those to either end of the couch. Just making sure to place them so the highlighted area is on the inside. Then I'll take that kitty that is sleeping on the stack of books, and I'm going to place that down on the floor in front of the couch, just above that sentiment. And then I have the little toy mouse that I'm going to place just to the left of that. I think that looks super cute. I love that little detail. And then I've also got the little ball of yarn that I will place over on the right-hand side in front of the couch. Then all that's left is to add a little bit of sparkle to this card. I'll put it on the cactus blossom, and then I'll also add it to a few of the little details on the books, just to give those a little bit of extra interest. And besides, books are magic anyway. I also added it to the ears of my little mouse toy and the yarn ball. And that is going to finish off this card, so I will lift that up so you can see all of the detail and give you another peek at the inside. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. I had so much fun creating this cozy, bookish kitty cat scene, so I hope you guys liked it too. If you did, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button and leave me a comment down below. I love to hear from you. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell if you want to be alerted when I post new videos. All the products I use will be listed and linked in the description bar below in case you'd like to pick up anything for yourself. And if you'd like to keep watching, here are 2 extra videos I thought you might also enjoy. Thanks so much for spending your time with me today. I hope you had a good one, and I'll see you soon in the next. Bye-bye!